family, and my mom's job was getting us to school every morning, my siblings and I. And one of the things she would do was make our lunch the night before so that she didn't have to wake up really early in the morning to make our lunch then. So, how many people of you in the audience have children? And how many of you are pretty interested in seeing them live in socially equitable, economically sustainable cities? So I think the reason that my mom made the lunches the night before is because it was a pretty easy way to start the day. She'd kind of done something pretty minimal to lay that foundation of the start of the next day. So this next discussion we have is about laying the foundation for San Antonio's future. And I'd like to bring to the stage two women who are going to play a very vital role in doing that. I'll welcome back Paula Williams, CEO of CPS Energy, and Sculley, the city manager, Sheryl Sculley, and the city manager of San Antonio. Welcome.
What I really realized as I'm getting the opportunity to run a company, a municipally owned company, is a lot of times you gotta stop what you're doing and appreciate the moment that you've been able to create. We're talking about the future. We're talking about things that are gonna happen in 2030 and 2050. And in reality, if we could really figure out exactly what 2050 is gonna look like, man, we wouldn't be here right now. So we don't know. But we have to really take inventory of a lot of the things that we've been able to do. And we want to talk about San Antonio in particular. And I want to do it with one of my good friends and partners here in San Antonio. Sheryl Sculley is the CEO of the city. City manager means a lot. And city manager is a title in a community, the 7th largest city. We went from 8 to 7 under her watch. And that she runs the city. There are 13,000 plus, are we way over that now? 13,000 employees that help run the city. Tremendous focus on service and services that we expect to be done by a city. But it's been an absolute pleasure to watch her work. 13 years in leading and thinking about things that can make our community better. In terms of the infrastructure, we've had tremendous investments in our San Antonio environment, making our streets and our drainage and our activities much better, our parks more beautiful. She's done a tremendous wide range while doing, being able to keep property tax rates from going up, and at the same time ensuring that we have a fiscal view about affordability. So the city of San Antonio attained a AAA rating under Sheryl's leadership. And she looked at running this city from many, many perspectives. And so it's been a pleasure to watch you work. I also sit with her on the San Antonio Economic Development Foundation. We work together to enable economic development. And so she has been thinking about things in many, many, many different ways, in every way she can to help the community go forward. So I have a whole list about your bio, but I can't say enough about how much the pleasure has been doing that. Yeah, and I've been praising her all the way. Now let me say a couple of things. It's been a pleasure too because I think in San Antonio we have something super special. It's not easy, it's tough. Again, what we think is we have challenges that are opportunities. But in addition to being a community-owned utility, we've been that for about 76 years. And so we are owned by the city of San Antonio, our energy company. Water company is also owned by San Antonio. And then we have this great network of leadership in terms of bringing the municipal model together. So what I want to do with you this morning is ask Sheryl a couple of questions about the vision that she's had in in trying to optimize the structure. When I have traveled across the globe, other businesses have said it's been very difficult to really kind of work with the city and the utility in particular. The city and the energy utility has been very difficult. But here, because she and I have a really great relationship, our teams work together. We're not exactly the same entity, but we get the point about what's good for San Antonio is what we have to enable to happen. I wanna ask you some questions about that.
Great, thank you, Paula.
So, can you talk a little bit about how long you and your leadership team have been working on Smart City as a foundation? And you've done certain things so far, but kind of give them a sense of where you started and where you think you are right now.
So I was recruited to San Antonio about 14 years ago, which is hard to believe. I called it at first my 2-year experiment, and here I am 14 years later. But I've been in city management for now 40 years and working in 3 great states, 3 great cities, this being the very best. And when I was recruited here, it was to turn things upside down. There was a lot of improvement that was needed. I was asked to assess talent, make change, look at the organization, and make the kinds of dramatic improvements that the council was seeking at the time. One of the previous speakers said something about cities have been looking at ways to improve for a very long time. I think that's very true. But I think that the advancements of technology and the speed at which we are expected to make those kinds of changes is rapidly increasing. And so we need to do so much more. When I came here, for example, one of the very basics, automated garbage collection, I think we might have been one of the last major cities in the country that didn't have automated garbage collection. And it sounds so basic and simple. We implemented that over a 3-year period, and I can recall the community reacting and saying, no, wait a minute, you're eliminating jobs. We did it through attrition, but by automation, we were able to eliminate 2/3 of the jobs in the department. We trained those who were eligible to obtain certified driver's licenses to operate the equipment, paid for it all, found other jobs for those who wanted to stay within the organization in something that fit their talents. And people resisted that, and it goes to the community or the human side, what we're talking about with technology as well, because we want to lift everyone up, and for those who might not have been able to take on that kind of role or that technical job, we still had to find something for them, and then help them with their job development and learning skills, workforce abilities at the same time. So that was a small thing, and now we take it for granted. I mean, if you think about it, our recycling rate at the time was only about 6% of our total waste stream back in 2005, and today it's at 40% with a goal of 60% by the year 2025 with a council-adopted policy. So I think in today's world, those kinds of expected changes are happening much quicker. And the community expects that. At the same time, we can't lose track of those who may not have access to some of what we've done. So, or the technology piece of it. But we, as you know, developed some smart city recommendations, discussed those with City Council that serves as our board of directors. And they adopted our plan in 2017, but it is in partnership with CPS Energy, with our San Antonio water system, with the VIA Metropolitan Transit Organization, our San Antonio River Authority, and I think the fact that the city owns the utilities enables us to have a much better and stronger working relationship as we approach all of these services that we consider so basic, but are very interdependent. And so we've done that through our executive committee, and maybe we could talk a little bit about that.
Well, actually, I think it would be good to talk about that, because what Sheryl has done, and excuse me, my Texas allergies are starting to kick in. My husband's starting to panic. Let's take it back real quick here. But, you know, you have pulled together the entities in terms of the CIOs,
Yeah.
business leads, and CEOs. So can you talk about that?
Yeah, not to make it overly complicated, but we have an executive committee that includes the CEOs of those organizations that I mentioned. And then another layer of the technical staff, those that really know how to get this done as we think of these ideas and talk with the community, that can network together, can work at that. I think Brian Dillard might be here this morning. Brian, if you're out there, wave at me, but he heads our innovation office. So we have a group of innovation staff that are much smarter than me and that can analyze some of our city services and operations. We have created, to begin and test some of these different ideas, 3 innovation zones, and we'll be issuing for you vendors that are out there, we'll be issuing an RFP in April this spring on different ideas to test before we implement citywide. We are more than 500 square miles, and so we can't take one idea, just implement it across the entire service area, your service area being even larger than the city itself and even stretching outside of Dare County. So we will practice with those. One is downtown, the second is at our medical center, and the third is at Brooks, which is a former military base, now a mixed-use development. And so we'll be testing some of these ideas. So you might say, so like what would we consider? So we have occasional flooding here in San Antonio and more than 150 high water crossings where we have different flashing lights that tell people don't drive through, and you know how this is. People drive through anyway, thinking surely it's not that deep, and they go through, and then we end up rescuing their floating cars down the waterways later and have had fatalities actually as a result of this. And so we actually have some gates and some of those crossings to keep people out. But there are ways to use technology where we don't have to be there, that we can measure the depth of the water, the gates and the signals can be instituted so that we don't have to have that kind of manual effort from a safety perspective. And it sounds so basic and easy to do, and yet it doesn't exist yet today. So I know that Doug Melnick mentioned in the previous panel the use of our streetlights and for gathering data that we can use for air quality and even traffic control and regulating some of our traffic signals for the ease of traffic that also mitigates some of the negative impact of air pollution with cars sitting and idling at traffic lights. So not to mention reducing frustration of the drivers. So there are so many things that we can do, and we'll be looking to implement some of those key ideas in these innovation zones. They are 3 of our 13 growth areas in the city. So we just completed a comprehensive plan updating recommendations for development in the future. We are expected to grow by more than 1 million people by the year 2040. Nearly doubling our population over the next 20 years. And so we have to be ready for managing all of this growth and the impacts of that. And I think that some of the smart city initiatives that will come out of these innovation experiments will enable us to do a much better job.
So this sounds good, and it sounds like it's easy to think exactly where you want to step and plan it. But you've been thinking about this for a long time, and some things have been more difficult than others.
Yeah, that's for certain.
Can you share with the group a couple of things that you would want to, maybe help them avoid or help them focus on?
Well, I think the data management, as you know, is a huge issue. So it sounds so easy to be able to say, we as organizations, city, CPS, SAWS, SARA, VIA, that we can share our data and be able to access everyone. Well, it took our technicians and legal staffs nearly a year to develop our data sharing agreements, because so much of what we as individual municipal corporations are responsible to maintain confidentiality in a number of different ways, and so just the data sharing, and that needs to be done right up front. Those cities that we've studied that did not do the data work right up front had trouble as they implemented some of their programs, so that would be a first step for certain. And the other thing is everyone has ideas as to what this could be. I'll use a simple example that I like to use with my staff, but I know it's much more complicated than this in total implementation. But because we are municipally owned entities that are working together, and we have now a data sharing agreement that is in place, we are hopeful that as new companies come to San Antonio, as new residents, these 1 million people that will be coming to San Antonio over the next 20 years arrive, that they can go to a central portal for getting their energy turned on, or having their water service initiated, getting via bus passes for themselves or their companies, having access to information about the San Antonio River and our very famous river walk that now extends more than 13 miles. So having all of that and getting city building permits or whatever is required for a home or business all in one central location would be something that would be advantageous and also facilitate and reduce all of our costs in terms of having to work with all of these businesses and residents coming to the community. So that sounds a lot easier than it is in the implementation. Nonetheless, it is something that we should be working toward, because that's what the customer wants, isn't it? Time is money, and no one wants to be placed on hold and go through or be cut off and call back or be online and not be able to figure out how to access what needs to be done. So I think there are tremendous opportunities that help in people's lives to make it better and improve the quality of life.
You know, I will punctuate one thing that Sheryl talked about for us, the data sharing agreement again. We have been studying what other communities have done in the data sharing arena, and then as we looked at it, it's a fairly complex, far-extending approach. We have tried to make it very simple at first. We were really thinking about the security around data. I mean, the real thing is about personal information of our customers. How do we really make sure it's protected? But how do we also turn it into data that has been stripped the personal information out, and really be able to aggregate it in a way that we can learn from that data, and that we can help people, as Sheryl talked about, help us solve real problems with really good data. But we're really trying to be very careful, and with that, I wanna do a little shout out. Actually, she doesn't know I shouted her out earlier, but we have a brand new trustee, Kanye Gonzalez, as our trustee here, who just came on with our board. Our first board meeting was this month. We're super excited because she is a IT, technical, cyber, service-minded entrepreneur in the field of all things in terms of enabling how a business can function better, how a community can function better. And interestingly, she looked at that agreement and she's like, you know, I want to make sure from a trustee standpoint that she can help us think through being very, very diligent and very, very careful about these initial things, as well as thinking about the broader perspective. You know, we have to think about security as a utility in terms of cybersecurity and keeping the grid secure. And we are Military City USA. One of our biggest combined customers together is trying to support the military in their missions. And so there are all of these connected customer interests, community interests, individual privacy interests that we're trying to balance all the way through. And I agree with Sheryl, we're glad to have this foundational agreement, but we've got a whole lot more work to do from there. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'd add to that too, another aspect, you know, in a city of 1.5 million, it's very difficult to really get the pulse of what the community is thinking about on an issue, because we generally hear from those who are either opposed or hugely advocating for a particular decision. And so using technology, we've been experimenting, and I hope the city continues to do this, with how do we access in an actual time way, gathering data and input from the community so that people can participate. No one wants to go to a meeting in another meeting in the evening, right? So you've had a 10, 12-hour workday, you have preparation you need to do for the next day, you have kids, you're trying to help with homework or whatever you're working on, but to be able to participate either virtually, and we've been experimenting with this, or to actually do some real-time contact and polling of people on current timely issues. I mean, we have, and this just shows how far we've come in this, you know, we do an annual survey of the community and standard questions, we compare to other cities, but in the meantime, you know, we do that every other year, and we get a pulse, and how are they evaluating we have 40 different, very diverse city departments, from the airport to garbage collection to EMS provisions, emergency medical service, to code enforcement, just all of these things. And so we measure, you know, and benchmark whether or not we're improving. But there are so many issues, real time, and you don't want to just hear about those who tend to be seniors who maybe have time in the evening to come to a meeting. You want to hear from all aspects of the community, and so real-time testing of issues. I'll take the scooters as an example. My goodness, I know Austin was here this morning. Austin, San Antonio, most major cities are dealing with thousands of scooters, this new disruptive technology in our downtown areas, and they're wonderful. We've embraced them, tried to minimally regulate, and now we're getting pushback because there are 14,000 permits issued for scooters in our downtown area with more than a half dozen companies. And so how do we maintain safety, but also not over-regulate the industry, but some real-time feedback, not just from those who maybe are working and living downtown. I happen to live and work downtown, but from all aspects of the community. And what is the true feedback? We've done this a couple of times now with meetings, and we've had in each example that we've done, more than 2,500 people be online, following, and some of them not necessarily interacting with us, but rather just getting accurate information about here's what's going on. I'm constantly amazed at people who ask questions, and I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, we've been talking about that at CPS, or we've been talking about that at City Hall with council members. Aren't they paying attention? Well, of course, they're busy. They're running their businesses, doing their lives, living their lives. So having that much more real-time interaction, and there, I'm sure, are technology solutions that will help us be able to do that in much greater ways.
Well, if we're getting close to the end of our time, but if you haven't really kind of taken a couple of little comments along the way, I want to highlight that Sheryl has decided that she is going to move on. She has had a wonderful tenure here in San Antonio, and to her testament, she helped the process in terms of finding her successor. And I was really proud of her because she had more internally viable, strong candidates that she had grown in her staff that were considered to be her successor. She has a successor. His name is Eric Walsh. He could not be here this morning, but he and I talked quite extensively and talked about supporting, wanting to be here today. And he's actually kind of like interested and really taken as much as he can in terms of what Sheryl has had to offer. But he's not here today, and I do have a question. If he was here today and you were able to look at him and say, hey, Eric, from everything I've done, I want to tell you some things about what you should stop doing relative to smart cities, what you better keep doing, and what you better start doing so that we can really keep this whole momentum going.
Well, Eric will do a fabulous job, and I am proud of the fact that all 6 of my deputy and assistant city managers were interviewed for the city manager position. When I was recruited here, the council wouldn't interview anyone inside the city organization. They were looking for outside help, and I was recruited here from Phoenix, and it's been a great ride. I'm retiring from city management, but not from work, so I'll always be doing something. But Eric is going to do a great job, and I would encourage him to not get bogged down in the detail as the technology people sort through the details. And the details, the devil's always in the detail. But you need to have some timelines and goals. Otherwise, the industry and technology is going to pass us by. So we want to make sure that we are connected with the community. And when I say community, not just those who have access to high-powered technology, but rather all people in the community. Someone mentioned libraries earlier. We have 30 libraries at Central and 29 branch libraries. And the lines, and we are every year as part of the budget increasing the number of computers in our libraries, because for so many in San Antonio with a high poverty population, this is their only access, and so we make that readily available and with training. So I would encourage him to keep pace and stay connected and to personally stay involved, right? If someone has a passion for the subject matter, they're going to do a great job, right? It's why years ago I asked my IT director at the time to head up our bike lane program. He was a cyclist himself, and I needed someone who had a passion for it to be working on it, right? And you want to have employees that are multidisciplined in their strengths, not just necessarily in one core area. So I would encourage him to stay the course, but with diligence to implementation, because there is so much that can be done, and I feel as though San Antonio was still playing catch-up in a number of areas, but we're gaining speed on all those other places, so I know we'll be able to be successful long-term. And for any of, we hosted a vendor summit, we as a city, a couple of months ago, and had several hundred vendors attend that about our smart city initiatives, and I would encourage the business community and those involved in the industry to stay connected with us and to help us sort through. We certainly don't have all the answers, but all of you who work in the industry can help us be successful, because it is about improving the quality of life. In the end, we're all here to add value, to make the city a better place, and I am feeling as though I leave my position as city manager, I leave the city in a better place, so I appreciate the opportunity to have served.
Well, here you have it. You have someone here who's done a tremendous amount for cities and has been a leader, and she's been willing to share her insights. Again, for my friend, and it's a pleasure to have you here on stage and being here at the conference. Thank you all.